Have you ever wondered what happens when an entire generation of men finally says enough is enough and quietly walks away from a system that spent decades telling them they are the problem? What happens when the people who are told they are toxic, disposable, and guilty just for existing decide to take those accusations at face value and simply remove themselves from the equation? Stay with me until the very end, because by the time this script is done, you are going to see exactly why millions of men are refusing to come back, why the complaints you hear today are only the beginning, and why the peace these men have found is something a lot of women will never understand. If you want more raw, unfiltered, angry guy content that cuts straight through the noise, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who needs to hear it, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss when I drop the truth. While you are down there, go check out Angry's Crypto Academy, linked in the description below. That is where I teach men how to actually protect their assets, how to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency the right way, and how to build real wealth in a world that wants to take everything from you. Click that link and get started today, because knowledge is the one thing they can never take away. And if you are enjoying these videos and you want to keep the angry guy fueled and firing on all cylinders, you can buy me a Red Bull through the link in the description. Every can keeps the red pilled content coming. Let me take you back to where this all started, because this did not happen overnight. This has been building for decades. Imagine being a young boy growing up in the 90s or early 2000s. You open the television, and every sitcom dad is a bumbling idiot who cannot tie his own shoes without his wife rolling her eyes and saving the day. You go to school and you are told that boys are naturally disruptive, that your energy is a disorder, that you need to sit still and behave more like the girls if you want to succeed. You are told that everything wrong in the world traces back to men and masculinity, and that the future is female. You are told that you are born with privilege, even though your single mother is working two jobs and you wear the same pair of sneakers until the soles fall off. You absorb the message early and you absorb it deep. Men are the problem. Men are the enemy. Men need to change. Fast forward to adulthood, and the messaging only gets louder. You are told that looking at a woman too long is creepy. You are told that complimenting her appearance is harassment. You are told that sitting with your legs apart on the subway is manspreading and an act of violence against women. You watch as the phrase toxic masculinity becomes the go to explanation for every societal issue, while nobody ever bothers to define what a healthy masculinity is supposed to look like. You watch as the education system fails boys at every level, as male suicide rates climb year after year, as male homelessness becomes invisible, and nobody seems to care because men are expected to just take it. You are told that if you speak up, you are fragile. If you complain, you are entitled. If you defend yourself, you are proving exactly why the world needs to be protected from you. Then the legal system gets weaponized. You see good men who spent years building businesses and families get dragged through divorce court, where the default setting is to assume the man is the villain. You watch as false accusations become a fast track to sympathy, money, and social media clout. You see the phrase believe all women turned into a sword instead of a shield, and you realize that due process only applies when it is convenient. You see, men lose their jobs, their children, their homes, their reputations, sometimes their freedom, all because speaking to a woman the wrong way or dating the wrong person can end everything you worked for in the blink of an eye. You see paternity fraud treated like a joke, while child support enforcement treats men like walking ATMs. You see the phrase kill all men trending on social media, while people laugh and say it is just venting. And through all of this, men were told to man up. Men were told that complaining makes you weak. Men were told that real men just handle their business and keep providing no matter how unfair the game becomes. So most men shut up and kept going. They kept working the dangerous jobs. They kept paying the majority of taxes. They kept inventing, building, protecting, and sacrificing, because that is what men have always done. But something shifted, something broke. Men started paying attention. Men started comparing notes. Men started asking a very simple question: what exactly are we getting in return for all of this? Because the social contract used to be clear. Men protected, men provided, men built civilization, and in exchange, they received respect, loyalty, family, legacy, and the basic human dignity of not being treated like a threat for existing. That contract got shredded. Men were told they were no longer needed for protection because the state would handle it. They were told they were no longer needed as providers because women were independent now. They were told that marriage and children were a bad deal because the risks were astronomical and the rewards were non existent. They were told that even their natural instincts, their desire to approach women, to lead, to protect, to compete, were all problematic and needed to be suppressed. So men listened. That is the part nobody wants to talk about. Men actually listened. When women said, "We do not need men," men heard, "We are not needed." When women said, "Men are toxic," men heard, "Stay away." When women said, "Do not approach us," men heard, "We will not approach." When women said, "Pay for dinner, but do not expect anything in return," men eventually heard, "We will stop paying for dinner." When women said, "Believe all women," men heard, "We are guilty until proven innocent, and the trial might destroy us anyway. So maybe we just stay as far away as possible." And that is exactly what happened. Men walked away, not in some dramatic protest with signs and megaphones. They just quietly removed themselves from the dating market, from the marriage market, from the endless performance of modern relationships. They stopped simping. They stopped chasing. They stopped caping. They stopped spending their time, money, and energy trying to prove their worth to people who spent years telling them they had none. They went home. They hit the gym. They built businesses. They learned skills. They stacked money. They found peace in their solitude because for the first time in their lives, nobody was telling them they were broken for being men. But something interesting happened when men made peace with being alone. They realized that being alone is not the same as being lonely. They realized that the company of a woman who resents you, who sees you as a utility, who weaponizes intimacy and affection, who keeps a mental scorecard of everything you do wrong, is actually far lonelier than sitting in a quiet apartment with your own thoughts and a clear conscience. They realized that the relationships they were told were mandatory for happiness were actually the source of most of their stress, debt, and drama. And then these men started traveling. They bought plane tickets. They discovered that the entire world does not operate under the same rules they grew up with. They landed in countries where women smile when a man holds the door, where femininity is celebrated instead of mocked, where a man can be strong and protective and ambitious without being called toxic for it, where family still means something, where loyalty still exists, where a woman looks at a man like he is a prize instead of a project. And these men who were told their whole lives that they were the problem suddenly found themselves being treated like human beings again, like men, like someone worthy of respect just for showing up and being themselves. And the reaction back home was immediate and predictable. The moment large numbers of men started dating abroad, started building lives overseas, started posting pictures with beautiful, happy, feminine women who actually seemed to like them, the narrative flipped. Suddenly, these men were not empowered individuals making rational choices with their own lives. Suddenly, they were predators. Suddenly, they were taking advantage of poor women. Suddenly, they were running away because they could not handle strong, independent American women. Every accusation you can imagine got thrown at them because the one thing that cannot be tolerated is men finding happiness outside of a broken system. But here is the part that cuts deepest: the men who leave are not the broken ones. The men who leave are the ones who fix themselves. They are the ones who went to therapy, who got in shape, who built wealth, who learned game, who became the best versions of themselves, and then looked around and said, "Why would I bring all of this value to a marketplace that hates me?" Why would I risk everything I built for someone who has been taught to see me as the enemy? Why would I volunteer to be disrespected, used, and discarded when I can take this passport, this peace, this freedom, and build something beautiful somewhere else? And the numbers do not lie. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Marriage rates are collapsing, birth rates are collapsing, dating app revenue is still high, but the satisfaction numbers are in the toilet because women are matching with the same small percentage of top men, while average men have checked out completely. Content creators who cater to women are making video after video asking where have all the good men gone, while completely ignoring the fact that those good men were told repeatedly they were not good, that they were the problem, that they needed to do better, while every metric of what better meant kept moving further out of reach. The truth is, these men never left society. Society left them. The rules changed underneath their feet, and when they adapted to the new rules by removing themselves from a losing game, suddenly everyone panicked. Suddenly, the same people who spent years saying men are trash started complaining that men are not approaching. The same people who said a fish does not need a bicycle started wondering why men stopped offering to pay for dinner. The same people who celebrated independence started filming themselves crying about being independent. And the best part is, these men are not angry anymore. That is what people get wrong. The angry phase was temporary. The red pill rage phase burned hot, and then it burned out. Because once you see the game for what it is, once you internalize that none of this was ever your fault, once you accept that you were sold a lie about what relationships were supposed to be, the anger gives way to something much more powerful: peace, clarity, freedom, the kind of deep, unshakable calm that comes from knowing you no longer have to play a game that was designed for you to lose. These men are not hiding overseas because they could not get a date at home. They are living overseas because they can finally breathe. They are dating women who wake up happy to see them, who cook dinner without turning it into a negotiation, who say thank you when a man carries something heavy, who understand that respect is a two-way street, who do not treat masculinity like a personality disorder. And every day, more men wake up and realize they have that same option. Every day, more men close their dating apps, cancel their subscriptions, book their flights, and never look back. So when you hear women complaining that dating is impossible now, that men are not approaching, that nobody wants to commit, that all the good men are gone, understand what they are really saying. They are saying the strategy stopped working. The game that relied on men having no other options, that relied on men being willing to accept crumbs and call it a banquet, that relied on shame and guilt and social pressure to keep men in line. That game is over. The leverage is gone. The power dynamic has shifted permanently because men finally have choices and they are exercising them without apology. And the craziest part is this is only the beginning. We are watching the early stages of the biggest shift in gender dynamics in modern history. Millions of men are opting out, and millions more are waking up every single day. The passport bro movement is not a fad, it is not a phase, it is the logical endpoint of decades of anti male programming meeting the reality of global choice and modern technology. Planes are cheap, visas are easy, translation apps work, money moves instantly, the world got very small very fast, and men are using that to their advantage in ways nobody saw coming. So, to every man watching this right now, understand that you do not owe anyone your presence in a marketplace that treats you like a villain. You do not owe anyone your time, your money, your commitment, or your sacrifice. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to choose happiness. You're allowed to build the life you want on your terms without apologizing for it. And if that life happens to include a woman who respects you, who values you, who brings joy instead of drama, that is beautiful. And if that life is just you, your purpose, your freedom, and your peace, that is just as valid. The era of men accepting disrespect as normal is over. The era of men shrinking themselves to make others comfortable is over. The era of men volunteering to be used and discarded is over. A new chapter has begun, and it is being written by men who finally understand their worth and refuse to negotiate it away. Now, let me paint a picture for you that most people are still too afraid to say out loud. Imagine a society that spent 50 years telling one half of its population that they are inherently defective, that their natural instincts are dangerous, that their presence alone makes spaces unsafe, that their success is stolen and their failures are deserved. Imagine that same society simultaneously telling the other half that they are flawless, that any criticism of them is hatred, that their worst impulses should be celebrated as empowerment, and that the entire world needs to be restructured around their feelings at all times. Then imagine that first group, the one that was told they are the problem, quietly stands up, dusts itself off, and walks away from the entire arrangement without yelling, without violence, without demands, just a calm, deliberate exit. That is not the plot of some dystopian novel. That is the world we are living in right now in real time, and the aftershocks are only getting louder. You see, the moment men stopped participating in the old script, the entire house of cards started to wobble. All those confident declarations about not needing men suddenly collided with the cold reality of rent prices, grocery bills, car repairs, and the fact that the vast majority of dangerous, difficult, backbreaking jobs are still done by men. All those viral videos celebrating single motherhood and boss babe independence suddenly had to confront the exhaustion, the loneliness, the endless grind of doing everything alone while pretending it is liberating. All those lectures about how marriage is a patriarchal prison started sounding hollow when the same people giving the lectures hit 35 and realized their dating prospects had shrunk to a handful of avoidant Peter Pans and divorced dads looking for a soft landing. And the panic set in fast. You can literally watch the timeline. First, it was confusion. Where did all the men go? Then it was anger. How dare they abandon their duty? Then it was bargaining. Fine, we will lower our standards if men just come back and act right. Then it was projection. These men must be broke, short, ugly, or socially awkward because no high value man would ever walk away. And now we are deep into the final stage, desperation. You have grown women in their late 30s and 40s making TikToks crying into ring lights because the same men they ignored or friend zoned in their 20s are now living in Thailand with 26-year-old women who greet them at the door with a smile and a home cooked meal. The coping mechanisms are in overdrive, but the math is still the math. Because here is the part nobody wants to say directly: the modern Western dating market was never designed to be fair. It was designed to extract maximum effort and resources from average men while giving them minimum reward, all while telling them that any complaint made them unworthy of love. Height requirements, income requirements, degree requirements, emotional labor requirements, therapy speak requirements. The list kept growing, while the pool of men who could meet every single demand kept shrinking. And for years it worked because men had no other options. Leaving the country was expensive. Learning a new language was hard. Building status in a new culture took years. Most men just gritted their teeth and played the game because losing the game still felt better than having no game at all. But the world changed. Budget airlines started flying everywhere. Remote work exploded. Crypto and online businesses let men make money from anywhere. Dating apps added geolocation features. Instagram and YouTube showed millions of men in real time that life could be dramatically better just a 12-hour flight away. And once the first wave of regular guys, not rich guys, not celebrities, just normal dudes with passports and a little bit of game, started posting their real lives overseas, the floodgates opened. Electricians from Ohio started dating models in Colombia. IT guys from Toronto started building families in the Philippines. Mechanics from Australia started marrying college educated women in Poland who think providing for your household is the bare minimum, not a flex. And these are not broken men running away from responsibility. These are men who took responsibility for their own happiness when their own societies told them their happiness did not matter. These are men who looked at the deal being offered, ran the numbers, saw that the juice was not worth the squeeze, and calmly chose a different path. They did not burn the system down. They just stopped feeding it. And that quiet withdrawal turned out to be more powerful than any protest ever could have been. Meanwhile, back home, the narrative machine went into overdrive, trying to shame them into returning. They were called predators, colonizers, sex tourists, losers who could not handle strong women. Every negative stereotype got dusted off and weaponized because the one thing that cannot be allowed is men discovering that happiness exists outside the plantation. But the shaming does not work anymore. You cannot shame a man who has already made peace with being called the villain. You cannot guilt trip a man who has watched his friends get destroyed in family court. You cannot manipulate a man who has seen behind the curtain and understands that the same people calling him a predator today were calling him trash yesterday and will call him irrelevant tomorrow. The best part is these men are not even mad anymore. That is what throws people off the most. They expect rage, bitterness, revenge fantasies. But most passport bros are chilling. They are relaxed. They are laughing in their videos. They are calm in a way that only comes from knowing you made the right decision, and no amount of social pressure can pull you back into a burning building. They wake up without dread. They go to sleep without arguments. They build wealth without someone spending it faster than they can earn it. They travel without permission slips. They live life on their own terms. And the contrast with the stressed out, overworked, underappreciated men they left behind is stark. And women feel that contrast, even if they will never admit it out loud. That is why the rage videos keep coming. That is why the coping posts never stop. That is why every week there is a new think piece about how men have become low value, or how masculinity is in crisis, or how women need to protect each other from men who dare to have standards. Because deep down, they know the strategy only worked when men had no other options. The moment men got options, the whole illusion collapsed. The moment men could compare a entitled 34-year-old with a laundry list of demands to a kind 25-year-old who wakes up grateful to have a good man in her life, the game was over. Let me be crystal clear about something. This is not about bashing women as a group. This is about calling out a specific cultural sickness that took root in certain parts of the Western world and poisoned an entire generation of relationships. There are still amazing women in America and Canada and the UK and Australia. There always have been. The difference is those women are now competing with the entire planet. And many of them are discovering that the attitudes they were sold as empowerment are actually the very thing pushing good men away. The women who figure that out first, who drop the entitlement, who relearn femininity, who decide that mutual respect beats perpetual victimhood, those women are still finding great partners. But they are the exception now, not the rule, and exceptions do not change market dynamics. The market has spoken. Men have voted with their feet, their passports, their bank accounts, and their attention spans. And the message is unambiguous. We will no longer participate in systems that treat us as disposable utilities. We will no longer accept contempt disguised as independence. We will no longer bankrupt ourselves emotionally, financially, and spiritually for the privilege of being tolerated. We would rather be alone than be disrespected. We would rather build lives overseas than shrink ourselves to fit into spaces that hate us. We would rather walk away and find peace than stay and fight for crumbs. And that decision is final. There is no grand negotiation coming. There is no mass return of the prodigal sons. There is no moment where millions of men suddenly decide that the old deal looks good again. That ship has sailed, that bridge is burned. The men who left are not coming back, and every day more men are joining them. The ones who stay behind are increasingly the ones who either cannot leave or have not yet woken up to the fact that they can. But their numbers shrink by the month. So when you see another viral video of a woman asking where all the good men went, understand she is not really asking a question. She is reading the writing on the wall and realizing the wall is closing in. When you see another article blaming dating apps or social media or porn or video games, understand they are naming symptoms while ignoring the disease. When you see another influencer telling women to just raise their standards higher while men disappear faster, understand that is the sound of someone trying to sell ice to Eskimos after the glacier melted. The truth is simple, and it is brutal. A generation of men was pushed too far for too long, and when they finally had the ability to leave, they did. They did not destroy the system with anger. They destroyed it with indifference. They did not fight back with violence. They fought back with absence. And absence, it turns out, is the one thing the system cannot survive. Because a society that needs men to function but spends decades teaching men they are worthless cannot last when men finally believe the lesson and act accordingly. A culture that demands male sacrifice while offering male contempt in return collapses the moment men stop sacrificing. Rome did not fall because of barbarian invasions alone. Rome fell because Roman men stopped believing Rome was worth defending. We are watching the same story play out again, just with better Wi Fi and cheaper flights. And the most peaceful part about all of this is that the men who walked away are not waiting for permission. They are not asking for approval. They are not negotiating terms. They are simply living. They are building gyms in their garages and businesses on their laptops. They are learning Spanish and Portuguese and Thai. They are dating women who say please and thank you. They are raising children who will never know what it feels like to be told their father is the problem. They are sleeping 8 hours a night without court dates hanging over their heads. They are experiencing, many for the first time in their lives, what it feels like to be valued simply for being men. That is the future they chose. That is the peace they found. And no amount of shaming, no amount of guilt tripping, no amount of media spin is going to drag them back into a cage they already escaped. So, to every man still on the fence, still wondering if it is worth it, still thinking maybe things will get better if he just tries harder, understand this: the juice is not worth the squeeze. The game is not going to unrig itself. The goalposts are not going to stop moving. The respect you are waiting for is not coming. But freedom is real, peace is real, happiness on your own terms is real, and it is closer than you think. All you have to do is make the same choice millions of men have already made. Close the apps, save the money, buy the ticket, learn the language, lift the weights, build the business, rediscover who you are when nobody is telling you that you are broken. And when you are ready, step into a world that still remembers what men are for. The old world is crumbling. The new one is already here. And it is being built by men who finally understand that their happiness is not negotiable. Now, let us zoom out even further because what we are witnessing is not just a dating crisis or a relationship trend, it is the slow motion collapse of an entire social operating system that was built on a foundation nobody bothered to stress test until it was too late. For 70 years, the West ran an experiment. What happens if we tell men they are the root of all evil while simultaneously making civilization completely dependent on their continued willingness to show up, work, sacrifice, protect, and pay for everything? The experiment has delivered its final results, and the results are in the form of millions of male footprints walking toward airport departure gates, never to return. Think about how insane the arrangement actually was when you strip away the slogans. Men were told from childhood that their natural desires were predatory, that their sexuality was inherently threatening, that their competitive drive was toxic, that their protective instincts were patriarchal, that their very existence in public space required constant self policing so that no one ever felt uncomfortable. At the same time, those same men were expected to keep inventing things, keeping the lights on, keeping the trucks rolling, keeping the wars fought, keeping the taxes paid, keeping the garbage collected, keeping the peace, and quietly accepting that none of that labor entitled them to basic respect or dignity in their personal lives. They were told in 1,000 different ways every single day that the best thing a man could do for women was to erase himself. And then society acted shocked when a critical mass of men looked around, shrugged, and said, okay, bet, and started erasing themselves from the equation entirely. And the erasure is happening in slow motion across every metric we have. Men are having less sex than any generation in recorded history. Men are forming fewer friendships. Men are starting fewer businesses that require dealing with HR departments and sensitivity training. Men are buying fewer engagement rings. Men are initiating fewer conversations with women in public. Men are enrolling in college at lower rates every year. Men are quietly shifting their investments into assets that cannot be taken in a divorce settlement. Men are learning trades that let them work for cash or crypto and stay off the grid. Men are moving to states and countries with better laws for fathers. Men are doing all of this without fanfare, without protest, without asking permission. This is not a coordinated movement with leaders and manifestos. This is millions of individual men making the same rational decision at roughly the same time because the incentives finally aligned. It is the ultimate example of distributed intelligence. No one had to tell them what to do. They just looked at the observable reality, ran the cost benefit analysis in their heads, and chose the option that preserved their sanity, their finances, and their freedom. And the beauty of it is that the very tools that were supposed to keep men trapped are the same tools that set them free. Social media showed men what life could be like overseas. Dating apps proved beyond any doubt that the game at home was rigged. Remote work proved you do not need to live in an overpriced coastal city to make good money. Crypto and decentralization proved you do not need to keep all your wealth in fiat accounts that can be frozen or garnished. Every technological advance that was celebrated as progress for women turned out to be escape hatches for men. That is poetic justice on a historic scale. Now, every single day, another man wakes up, scrolls through his feed, sees a brother living in Medellin with a woman who cooks for him and rubs his back when he gets home from the gym, and he thinks, wait a minute, that could be me. Every day, another man watches his buddy get cleaned out in family court and decides he will never sign that contract. Every day, another man opens Bumble or Hinge, sees the same entitled bios and laundry lists of demands, closes the app, and books a language class instead. Every day, the momentum compounds, and the momentum is unstoppable at this point because it is built on something far more powerful than anger. It is built on relief. The moment a man steps off the plane in a new country and a woman smiles at him without suspicion, without an agenda, without treating his existence like a burden, something shifts inside him permanently. The moment he realizes he can go to a bar and talk to a beautiful woman without worrying that someone is secretly recording him to post online, he exhales a breath he did not know he was holding for 20 years. The moment he sits down to a dinner that costs $12 and tastes better than anything he ever ate in a major Western city, he understands that the life he was told was mandatory was actually optional. And once a man tastes that freedom, there is no going back. You cannot unsee it. You cannot unfeel it. You cannot unlearn the knowledge that peace is real and that it is available to any man willing to claim it. That is why the shaming language no longer lands. Call him a sex tourist, call him a colonizer, call him whatever you want. He is sitting on a balcony overlooking the ocean with a woman who wakes up happy to see him, sipping a coffee that cost $1.50, laughing at memes on his phone, and he is not reading the comments. The cope is real, but the cope is powerless against lived experience. And here's the part that keeps the rage machine running at maximum capacity. These men are not just surviving overseas, they are thriving in ways that were never possible back home. They are calmer. Their testosterone levels are higher because they are not in a constant state of low grade stress. Their bank accounts are growing because they are not bleeding money on dates that go nowhere or relationships that explode every 6 months. Their mental health is better because they are not walking on eggshells, wondering which comment will be screenshotted and used against them later. Their social circles are tighter because they are surrounded by other men who made the same choice and understand the assignment. They are living proof that the narrative was a lie. The narrative said men cannot be happy without women. These men are happier than they have ever been. The narrative said men need sex to function. These men are having more and better sex than most of their friends back home who are still trapped in the matrix. The narrative said men who leave are losers who could not make it with Western women. These men are dating women who are younger, kinder, fitter, and more feminine than anything they ever pulled at home, even in their prime. Every success story is a crack in the foundation of the old system. Every happy couple photo from Bogota or Cebu or Krakow is a billboard advertising the new reality. Every calm, confident man speaking fluent Spanish to his gorgeous fiance on YouTube Live is a walking advertisement for the road less traveled. And there is no amount of media spin that can undo the power of visual evidence. Men trust their eyes more than they trust talking heads now. That is why the backlash keeps escalating. That is why every month there is a new documentary or podcast or viral thread trying to paint passport bros as predators or losers or delusional. Because the alternative, admitting that millions of regular men fix their problems by simply leaving the jurisdictions that hated them, is too dangerous to the narrative. If men ever truly internalize that the problem was never them, that the problem was a sick culture that taught an entire generation of women to despise the men they depend on, then the game is over forever. And the game is already over. The only people who have not accepted it yet are the ones still trying to sell courses on how to find a good man in 2026 by raising your standards higher and healing your divine feminine energy. The cope is astronomical, but reality does not negotiate. So now we watch the final act play out in real time. We watch birth rates plummet to levels that make economists panic. We watch marriage rates hit all time lows while divorce rates stay sky high. We watch women in their late 30s and 40s flood fertility clinics while insisting they do not need a man. We watch OnlyFans and sugar dating platforms become the primary retirement plan for an entire generation of women who were told career would be enough. We watch politicians promise to import millions of new workers because native men are not producing enough children to keep the Ponzi scheme running. We watch the same society that spent decades telling men to step aside now quietly begging them to come back and save the day one more time. But the men are not coming back. They are on the beach. They are in the gym. They are building houses in places where the cost of living is a fraction of back home. They are teaching their sons how to be strong and their daughters how to be kind. They are living the kind of simple, peaceful, masculine lives that their grandfathers took for granted and their fathers were told were oppressive. And every day another man joins them. Every day another light goes on in another man's head when he realizes that the unhappiness he was told was normal is actually optional. Every day another man closes the chapter on a life of quiet desperation and opens a new one written on his own terms. This is not a phase. This is not a trend. This is the new normal. The age of men accepting contempt as the price of companionship is over. The age of men trading their peace for the privilege of being tolerated is finished. The age of men shrinking themselves to fit into a world that hates them is done. A new age has begun. An age where a man's default setting is peace, not performance. An age where loyalty is rewarded instead of punished. An age where masculinity is celebrated instead of pathologized. An age where men understand that their value is inherent and non negotiable. And that age is not coming. It is already here for every man willing to claim it. And now we arrive at the part that nobody wants to say out loud, but every man watching this already feels in his bones. The walkaway was never just about dating. Dating was only the first domino to fall. Once men realized they could refuse to play a losing game in one area of life, the realization spread like wildfire into every other area. Once a man proves to himself that he can live happily without handing over his time, money, peace, and future to people who despise him, he starts asking the same question about everything else, about his job, about his government, about the taxes he pays, about the culture that demands his labor while spitting in his face, about the universities that charge six figures to teach his sons to hate themselves, about the corporations that force him to sit through struggle sessions, about his privilege while they ship his job overseas. The moment a man internalizes that his consent is required for his own exploitation, the entire matrix starts to crack. That is why this movement is so much bigger than Passport Bros or MG Tao or whatever label the media slaps on it this week. This is male self ownership on a civilizational scale. This is millions of men simultaneously deciding that their lives, their labor, their legacy, and their happiness belong to them and them alone. And once that switch flips, there is no turning it off. You can already see the secondary effects rippling outward. Men are refusing to work soul crushing corporate jobs that demand 60 to 80 hours a week just to afford a 400 square foot apartment in a city that hates them. Instead, they are learning trades, going remote, starting one man businesses, moving to low cost states or countries where their money stretches further and their peace is non negotiable. Men are refusing to enroll in universities that treat them like second class citizens from day one. Instead, they are self educating, getting certifications, or skipping the debt entirely and building wealth while their peers drown in student loans for gender studies degrees. Men are refusing to get married under legal systems that treat marriage as a wealth transfer program from men to women. Instead, they are staying single, stacking money, and living like kings on half the income their married friends burn through just to keep a roof over an ungrateful family. Men are refusing to have children in jurisdictions where a vindictive ex can weaponize the family court system and remove them from their kids' lives on a whim. Instead, they are either staying child free by choice or building families in places where fathers still have rights and respect. Every single one of these decisions is rational. Every single one is a direct response to observable reality. And every single one terrifies the people who built their power on the assumption that men would never stop consenting. Because here's the secret nobody in power wants you to figure out. Everything in the modern world depends on men continuing to volunteer. The military depends on men volunteering to fight. The economy depends on men volunteering to work the hardest, most dangerous jobs. The tax base depends on men earning more and paying more while getting less in return. The birth rate depends on men agreeing to father children under conditions where they have almost no control over the outcome. The entire social order as we know it is built on the silent, unappreciated, taken for granted willingness of men to keep showing up and keeping the wheels turning, even while being told they are the problem. And now men are withdrawing that consent one by one, quietly, calmly, and permanently. This is the real reason you see panic in the headlines. This is why articles about the loneliness epidemic never quite admit who is actually lonely. This is why politicians keep talking about falling birth rates like it is some mysterious plague instead of the predictable outcome of making family formation a terrible deal for men. This is why every few months another think tank releases a terrified report about young men checking out of society. They are not checking out. They are opting out of a specific version of society that stopped deserving their participation. And the most revolutionary part, they are doing it without anger. The rage phase was real, but it was temporary. The men who have truly internalized this lesson are not screaming on street corners. They are not begging for the system to change. They are not trying to negotiate better terms. They are simply building parallel systems. They are creating lives, communities, businesses, and families that operate outside the reach of the institutions that hate them. They are proving day after day that a man does not need permission to live well. That is the ultimate power move, not destruction, replacement. They are replacing the 9 to 5 grind with location independent income. They are replacing overpriced dating markets with global choice. They are replacing hostile legal systems with jurisdictions that still respect fathers. They are replacing soul draining cities with peaceful beach towns and mountain villages. They are replacing propaganda media with private discords and telegram groups where men speak freely. They are replacing therapy that pathologizes masculinity with gyms, saunas, and brotherhood. They are replacing everything that was designed to extract value from them with systems that protect and multiply their value. And every man who makes that transition becomes a walking billboard for the new reality. Every success story pulls 10 more men into the current. Every calm, happy, financially secure man living in a country where people still say good morning without irony is a crack in the old narrative. Every father raising confident sons and feminine daughters in a culture that still values family is a repudiation of everything the West spent 50 years teaching. This is why the shaming will never stop. Because the moment the average man realizes that the problem was never him, that the unhappiness he was told was normal is actually optional, that peace, respect, love, and legacy are still available if he is willing to claim them, the old system loses its grip forever. And that grip is slipping faster than anyone wants to admit. We are watching the greatest quiet revolution in history. Millions of men across every race, every income level, every educational background waking up to the same simple truth: my life is mine, my time is mine, my peace is mine, my future is mine, and I do not owe any of it to a society that spent my entire life telling me I was broken for being born male. That realization, once it takes root, is permanent. You cannot unring that bell. You cannot guilt a man back into a cage once he has tasted freedom. You cannot shame him into volunteering for exploitation once he understands the game was rigged from the start. You cannot threaten him with loneliness when he has already made peace with his own company and discovered it is better than bad company. The men who get this are not coming back, ever, under any circumstances, no matter how many articles are written, no matter how many politicians promise to bring men back into the fold, no matter how many women suddenly discover traditional values in their late 30s. The answer will always be the same: calm, quiet, unbreakable, no. Because these men have seen the other side. They have felt what it is like to wake up without dread, to build wealth without someone else spending it, to love without walking on eggshells, to be respected just for showing up and being a man, to live in a culture where strength is celebrated, where protection is appreciated, where loyalty still means something. And once you have lived that life, even for a month, even for a week, going back to the old way feels like volunteering to put the chains back on. So the walkaway continues. The airports stay busy. The language apps keep getting downloads. The gym memberships keep climbing. The remote jobs keep growing. The crypto wallets keep filling. The parallel systems keep expanding. And the old world keeps wondering why nothing works the way it used to while quietly panicking about what comes next. But the men who left already know what comes next: peace, purpose, legacy, brotherhood, freedom, built on their terms, protected by their choices, and owed to no one. And that is the future they are building. And every day, more men join them, every single day. And this is where the story stops being about any one man and starts being about the future of civilization itself. Because when millions of men, especially the most capable, productive, and responsible ones, decide that the society they were born into no longer deserves their full commitment, the effects do not stay contained in the dating market. They cascade, they compound, they reshape everything. Look at what is already happening. Cities that spent decades pricing men out while simultaneously demonizing them are now watching their tax bases shrink because those same men took remote jobs and moved to places where a man can still buy a house with a yard on a single income. Universities that spent years turning campuses into ideological re education camps are watching male enrollment collapse so fast that entire departments are being shuttered. Corporations that thought they could replace competent men with diversity quotas are discovering that bridges still fall down when ideology writes the blueprints. Governments that built their budgets on the assumption that men would keep working 70-hour weeks while being told they are the problem are staring at budget shortfalls that no amount of money printing can fix when the producers quietly step back. The system never prepared for the possibility that men might actually believe what they were being told and act on it. It assumed men would keep showing up out of duty, out of guilt, out of habit, out of lack of options. It never imagined a world where men had options and chose themselves first. And now that world is here. You can feel it in the air. There is a quiet confidence spreading among men that was not there 5 years ago. A calm certainty, a refusal to apologize for existing, a willingness to say no and mean it, a complete lack of interest in performing for people who never valued the performance in the first time. Men are not asking for permission anymore. They are not begging to be seen. They are not negotiating for basic respect. They are simply taking their lives back, one decision at a time. And the most powerful part, they are doing it with joy, not bitterness, not revenge, joy. They are laughing again. They are lifting heavier. They are sleeping better. They are building wealth faster. They are traveling lighter. They are speaking freer. They are living fuller. They are rediscovering what it feels like to be proud of being men instead of ashamed of it. They are raising sons who will never know what it is like to be told their natural instincts are dangerous. They are loving daughters who will grow up understanding that real men protect, provide, and lead without apology. This is not destruction, this is reconstruction. These men are not tearing the old world down with their hands. They are starving it of their participation until it collapses under its own contradictions. And in the vacuum they are leaving behind, they are building something new, something simpler, something stronger, something that actually works. Communities where men speak plainly and women respond with grace. Economies where a man's word is still his bond. Families where fathers are present and respected. Cultures where strength is celebrated instead of medicated. Places where loyalty is rewarded and betrayal is punished. Places where peace is the default setting instead of perpetual conflict. That is the world being built right now, in real time, by men who finally understand that their consent was the only thing keeping the old system alive, and that consent has been permanently withdrawn. There will be no grand reconciliation. There will be no tearful moment where everyone admits they were wrong and begs the men to come home. That fantasy only exists in the minds of people who still believe men have no options. The men who left are not waiting for apologies. They are not waiting for reform. They are not waiting for society to magically become fair. They are already living the life that society told them was impossible. They are the future, and the future does not negotiate with the past. So if you are a man still sitting on the fence, still hoping things might get better, still thinking that if you just work harder, earn more, become better, maybe they will finally respect you. Hear me clearly. They will not. The respect you are waiting for is never coming from that direction. The validation you seek from a culture that hates you is a mirage. The future you want is not going to be given to you, it has to be taken. And it is waiting for you right now. All you have to do is make the choice that millions before you have already made. Choose yourself, choose peace, choose freedom, choose the life you were told you were not allowed to have. Close the chapter on performance and open the one written in ownership. Walk away from everything that demands your sacrifice while offering contempt in return. Step into the world that still remembers what men are worth. The plane ticket is cheap. The gym is open. The business can be started tomorrow. The language can be learned in 6 months. The peace is immediate. The joy is real. The brotherhood is waiting. You do not need permission. You do not need approval. You do not need to explain. You just need to move. And when you do, you will discover what every man who made this choice already knows. The moment you stop asking a broken system for permission to live well, life becomes very, very good, very, very fast. That is the secret. They do not want you to find out. That is the truth that changes everything. That is the reason millions of men are walking away and never looking back. Because once a man chooses himself, truly chooses himself, without guilt, without apology, without compromise, he becomes unstoppable. And an unstoppable man builds a different world. We are those men, and we are just getting started. What did you think about everything we just went through today? Did any of this hit home? Are you seeing this shift in your own life, your friends, your city? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Like the video if you liked it. Do not forget to subscribe. And if this spoke to you, share it with another man who needs to hear it today. All roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.